So this was the original part of the layout. It has been added to quite considerably, and from the before and after shots you'll be able to sort of make out where the old layout really was. The track plan is similar in a lot of ways, or the sort of the general track plan, but it's since been heavily upgraded from its original founding days. So about here we have the line that runs through the hill. That is an extension. The baseboard actually used to end at that point. The reason for that is I was never happy with the tight radius of this curve, but well, this will be actually another video that I'll do, which is actually this whole section here, including this viaduct and the extension, which is actually still incomplete, as with everything else on this layout. So that will be another video there. So the baseboard started at that point. It came through here, through the station. This is generally the same sort of layout, although I have literally taken out all the old Hornby points and replaced them with streamline Pico, just to get slightly more realistic sort of track radiuses and so forth. The yard has changed a few times over in its existence, and there's some other areas here which have been sort of rehashed multiple times over the years. But and all these areas here, these will actually I'll make separate videos, because there's sort of some, you know, I've done pockets of detailing here and there, even though this is still actually not complete once again. But and the station as well, so the sort of areas where I've sort of worked with a bit of weathering and detailing and so forth. But as we run through the yard, this has pretty much stayed the same. Down here is where things changed considerably from the very first rendition of the layout, because this here, if we look down this line through there, that's where the layout ended. So it was a very small layout. Around here there was this horrendous, I think it might have actually been a first radius curve, where that track actually came along here and then it curved around up around behind where there's, well, that church didn't used to be there, but it was just pretty ridiculous, and it was less like a model railway and more like a kid's toy. So that's when we moved to this place, I thought, right, I now have the opportunity to actually get rid of that, and hence what happened is to build out this whole new section in here, and actually bring the lower level tracks to run underneath, which now actually go behind and up here. And actually I left a comment on Charlie's page at Chadwick Railway, Model Railway, and talking about the spaces underneath and actually having a gradual incline, and you can just sort of make it out there, this whole section, to try and actually, so the point of where it's at its lowest level, which is down here, then climbs up to and all the way around. It goes underneath this section here, and it pops out up here, and within that space this is the upper level, which is roughly about here somewhere. So it's covering a reasonable distance in order to try and reduce the gradient. But anyway, that might actually be another video that I do. And in another video, which I will do, I've created access points all through here where these buildings and entire sections actually pop off the layout, so that you can gain access to the track underneath. And also over here, like that entire hill actually lifts out, even though it's not finished. So when you guys look and go, oh, that doesn't look very good because it's got the hard edge line, those are things, they're going to be things like hedges and fences, and there's going to be more you know, sort of bushy, shrubby materials and things like that. If we get back to this extension, which I built in here, and then the idea behind this is that it sort of really opened up and given me actually a reasonable amount of running line. And then, of course, there's more yards in here. In behind here is a hidden siding, which I hide a DMU, so that it would, you would sort of maybe think that it was a main line. Sorry, not a main line, a branch line, with a DMU that would then come out along the track and come into the station, or vice versa. Now, there's a lot of things in here that are totally non-prototypical. So before anyone goes, well, those points are in the wrong place and that switch is not right. So please don't worry. I'm not following everything to an absolute, you know, prototypical sort of British rail track system. So, for example, here I kind of feel like that probably should be the other way around. Or I think down here, and I probably will at some point add in another set of switches so that I can actually have that as a loop at some point. In here, this was the original main lines before I extended the board, and I've decided I'm actually going to keep that one of these lines, and that will become another hidden siding, which could be the continuation of the DMU run. So the DMU would hide in this tunnel, pop out, come into the station, then head off and go around and then duck into and hide in behind there. So it's kind of an end-to-end line in a way. And then I thought I will actually completely mess this up and actually have this as a as a beaching cut. Railway line. So this would be, you know, since the layout sort of set in the early to mid 60s, I kind of feel like, well, it'd be nice to actually have a line that's in the process of actually being torn up. So I'm actually going to leave that as it is, add in weeds and overgrownness and so forth, and generally make it look a lot more run down looking. If we come around this side here, we've got a little access hatch in behind there, but these houses and so if all these buildings, actually, well, most of these buildings will actually lift off. So if we actually, you know, for example, oh, see daisies, there goes the telegraph pole. For example, you know, you can get into these spots. Yeah, so through here I'm sort of working away at starting to actually get some detailing and weathering in here. You know, so I've got this second line. You will actually see a cut through there, because this whole, you can actually see the lines. You can actually see, I won't show now, but this whole section actually comes out. There's wiring in underneath here, so because these all the lighting works, there's lighting in the buildings here, so I've got plugs and everything hooked up underneath there for wiring. But essentially the main line actually, which comes around through here, it actually goes directly underneath the goods shed and out through there. So you can actually see, well, if you see there, you can go, that's the line through there. So yeah, there's things like, I mean, the street's not finished. That's just painted a base grey. So nothing's happened here. At this stage, it's sort of like I started to do things in here, and then I sort of haven't. You know, there's things like, oh, that telephone box needs to be repainted in a decent red, and so forth. And I've sort of begun doing things in here like the schoolyard and so forth. And then over here, there's so much work to do through here. I've sort of done little bits and pieces. So, for example, you know, this area here. So I've put in weathering and so forth for this sort of yard area, or well, actually the engine shed. What would you call it? A TMD maybe, but it's not really. And then other areas too, like so the church area. The idea behind, you know, these sort of areas is that what I do is, well, for a start, it actually makes it easier. And I hope I don't have to move. We don't move from this place for quite a long time, but if I did, then all of these things actually come off. They're all separate components that all lift off the board, which can be easily packaged. But the other great thing about doing these in sort of like a, rather than actually having it, working on the baseboard. So for example, that church, that whole area comes off, that whole section comes off. All these little areas come off, is I can actually take this stuff inside and actually work on it at the dining table. So I don't have to be out here all the time. I can actually take all my or take a selection of gear inside and actually work on these inside at the dining table. So the track around here, this is probably the only area that I sort of kind of thought if there was any way I could fix it, but maybe you guys might have an idea of how I might be able to actually sort this area out, because my main gripe about this really is the fact that it's the curve is ridiculous. I think it's a second and a third radius curve, which is okay. I mean, all my stock does get around it. I don't have any issues with any of the track here in terms of my my rolling stock or locomotives. But I kind of feel like, gosh, if I really thought about it, I would have moved this whole layout away from that wall, and then I could have pushed it out a bit further. But it's just too much of a nightmare to even sort of consider that. But I mean, it's kind of in the back corner. I'm not too worried about it. It's from a visual point of view, because the idea is that you would look at the layout from this point or something, and I'm actually using, like for example, the ash tower and the church and so forth. It's kind of like a visual break, so that you don't really see that curve. And then when I eventually sort of finish this area, there will be, I'm going to put sort of edging along here, so there'll be a hedge and a bit more of a hill and an embankment here, the pathway and so forth. So, and there'll be trees and so forth along here, so that's actually going to block out this whole area a little bit more. So it'll kind of look more like the trains will sort of kind of disappear out of view and reappear again as they come around. It's an interesting point there from my very first sort of historic archive video was the beer bottle that indicated in there, of course, is the pub. This was an extension as well. The baseboard actually finished just there. So I've actually added this bit here because and I'll go into this in a separate video as well. Actually, hiding under here and actually inside here is a switch, and this actually controls this section of isolated track, which is actually my programming track for the DCC. So when I purchase a new locomotive, or I want to change some CVs or something like that, I actually run the locomotive into the shed. Actually, no, I don't do that. This whole section comes off. So this whole piece actually comes off, and then I can pop an engine on here, flick a switch, and I can program the locomotive, flick the switch, and then test it. So without having to move the locomotive from one track to another track by hand, I can just flick the switch and test the locomotive, make sure it's and run it along this section of track. So in terms of the buildings in here, as you'll see, most people will probably recognize them and go, oh wow, this guy loves his Metcalfe models. And I do. Here and there's a bit of kit bashing that goes on. For example, this is the one of the Metcalfe factory sets, but I've kind of hashed it a bit. I've added other bits to it, like that's not normally there. The smokestack is not part of the deal, so that's actually custom built. That smokestack, that's actually not part of any kit at all. And then there's other things like these silos or tanks around the other side. This will be actually another video, this whole section, because some quite little curious little things that I've used here for that. There's other areas like I've for example, the front of that low relief is actually the back of that, because what was the point in having that on the back of that when I could use that and build that out? That's scratch built, because I just simply, Metcalfe used to have a coaling stage, but then I didn't really like it anyway. So I just researched coaling stages, and got lots of photos and so forth, and built my own. And I think it's come out reasonably okay, apart from the crooked window. But then, you know, it's an industrial building. Maybe the window is about to fall off. There's some other areas here, like I turned that into a hotel in behind here. It was originally a terminus station by Metcalfe, but unfortunately the silverfish have started eating it, which is not too good. That's Metcalfe. That's a Hornby. No, they're Hornby. What are they? They're the Scale-X, resin models, which are quite nice, but there's no fun, because everything's done. So I enjoy, I'm more about making the buildings rather than just buying these. They're brilliant. They're so much more realistic. But you just buy them and stick them on, and there's nothing really sort of creative, I guess, about that. What else is there? There's the this signal box. That's a scratch-built signal box, which is basically from leftover bits of Metcalfe models, for example, windows and so forth. And I've kind of made it a little bit more eclectic. Yeah. That's Metcalfe as well. The bridge, if you can see that, that's heavily kit bashed. But that'll be another video which I'll do for that. So yeah, I think that's about it. I will end this component, and I think that's the beginning of the tour. If you guys have any questions about or if you want to actually see can I have a closer look at such and such on the layout, just leave a comment, and at a later stage I'll quite happily put up some more video footage that particularly if there's something that you wanted to sort of focus in on or zoom in on. That would be great.